Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to Crime Zone.
Authorities in Los Angeles have reportedly been left scratching their heads this week following a sophisticated heist at a money storage facility, a crime that is said to be one of the largest of its kind in the city's history. The whole thing started sometime in the early morning hours of April 1st when employees of international security company Garterworld noticed that they had been the victims of a theft. A huge sum of cash, estimated to be in the range of about $30 million, had been stolen from the vault of their facility on Roxford Street, located in LA's Sylmar neighborhood. While few details of the heist have been released at the time of this recording, it's believed that the thieves managed to get in through the building's roof. It's also suspected that they were able to disable the facility's surveillance cameras using some kind of Wi-Fi jammer. They then somehow made their way into the building's main vault without triggering any alarms. In fact, the actual crime is suspected to have happened the day before, with the thieves believed to have taken advantage of the Easter holiday. Photographs have since emerged of a hole in the side of an exterior wall which had been covered with plywood. However, it's unclear if this is related to the crime. Currently, no suspects have been identified in connection with the massive heist, with authorities saying that they're still investigating. All investigators have said so far is they believe those responsible were part of an experienced and sophisticated crew who had a deep knowledge of the facility's security features. The situation is still developing.
Authorities in Oakland County, Michigan say that they are investigating the aftermath of a strange and violent incident this week after a fast food employee was shot in the leg by a customer during the middle of an argument. One that was allegedly over a side of guacamole. The incident took place just before 7 p.m. on April 5th at the Chipotle location on Evergreen Road in the Detroit suburb of Southfield. Witnesses say that they were in the restaurant trying to enjoy their meals when they heard a loud argument begin between a 21-year-old employee and a 33-year-old man who had just finished ordering. While the exact circumstances of that argument are unclear, according to several sources, the situation began with a dispute over guacamole. Things escalated when the 21-year-old employee went into the back of the restaurant and the 33-year-old suspect reportedly tried to grab his food from behind the counter and take off. The 33-year-old was confronted by the employee, prompting a scuffle. Witnesses watched in horror as things spiraled out of control, ending with the suspect pulling out a gun and shooting the 21-year-old in one of his legs. Despite what had just happened, those who saw everything unfold say that the 33-year-old was in no hurry to flee after the shooting. He apparently took his time leaving the restaurant, then got in his car and drove away. Witnesses say he did not speed off, but rather seemed to be acting as if nothing had happened. The employee who was injured was taken to a local hospital where he was treated for non-life-threatening injuries. The suspect, meanwhile, was arrested a little while later. At the time of this recording, no charges against him have been announced, and none of the names of those involved have been released.
Authorities in Polk County, Florida say that they're investigating an awful murder case this week after a university student allegedly stabbed his own mother to death inside her home, then offered a chilling explanation for his actions. The incident began on the afternoon of April 6th when the suspect, Emmanuel Espinoza, showed up at his mother's house just south of the city of Frostproof. The 21-year-old pre-med student at the University of Florida had driven there from Gainesville to attend a family event and had asked his 46-year-old mother, Elvia, if he could stay for the weekend, to which she agreed. When Emmanuel knocked on the door at 2 p.m., his mother immediately opened the door to greet him. However, instead of saying hello, the 21-year-old allegedly began stabbing her to death. A relative who was on the phone with Elvia at the time reportedly heard the horrifying attack as it unfolded. After stabbing his mother until she was dead, Emmanuel called 911 himself. When officers arrived at the scene, he offered a disturbingly matter-of-fact confession, saying in part, quote, I've wanted to kill my mother for many, many years because she got on my nerves. The 21-year-old went on to explain that he loved his mother, describing his relationship with her as an 8 out of 10. Despite this, he said that she irritated him, and that on this particular day, he had made up his mind that he was going to kill her on his way down from Gainesville. So that's exactly what he did. The killing came not only as a shock to Elvia's family, but to her colleagues and friends at the local elementary school where she taught 2nd grade. In a statement, a representative from the school said that she was beloved by her students and worked very hard to be the best teacher possible. Following the incident, Emmanuel Espinoza was arrested for the brutal crime. He has now been charged with first-degree murder.
The friends and family of an Irish immigrant are reportedly in mourning this week after she was brutally attacked and killed at the bar where she worked, a crime that was allegedly carried out by her boyfriend. The disturbing incident unfolded on the evening of March 30th at the Cayley House, an Irish pub located in Queens' Maspeth neighborhood. It was approximately 6:30 p.m. and 41-year-old bartender Sarah McNally had just finished serving for the business's happy hour when her boyfriend, 36-year-old Marcin Piacic, walked inside. Sarah was chatting with a couple of people and apparently took no notice of Piacic as he came in behind the bar where she was standing. Seconds later, he allegedly pulled out 2 knives and began stabbing her repeatedly. Because of how quickly the whole thing took place, Sarah's horrified friends and customers were completely caught off guard. Before anyone could react, she had suffered serious injuries to her back, chest, and neck and fell to the floor, where she tragically died. According to reports, after committing the attack, Piacic turned his weapons on himself, inflicting injuries to his head and neck. When police arrived, he refused to put the knives down, and stun guns had to be used to disarm him. The 36-year-old was rushed to a hospital with critical injuries, though unlike Sarah, he survived. In initial reports on this story, several people interviewed by local media said that they were shocked by what had happened because they believed Sarah and Piacic were in a happy relationship. They had been living together in Queens' Glendale neighborhood for about a year, and there was no history of domestic violence between them as far as anyone was aware. However, those closer to Sarah have since painted a far less rosy picture of the relationship. According to several friends, the 41-year-old told them that things were not going well between her and Piacic, and she was thinking about going back to Ireland where she was originally from. She had been living in the United States for about 10 years at the time of her murder. Even so, they said they never pictured anything like this happening, describing Sarah as a sweet and charismatic woman who was known for helping others. At the time of this recording, Piacic remains in police custody at the hospital where he is recovering. He has now been charged with murder as well as criminal possession of a weapon.
A fed-up New York City man finally got his revenge this week after he was victimized dozens of times by porch pirates, and he decided to take matters into his own hands by setting a trap. According to reports, it all started on March 27th when Carlos Mejia had a $250 pair of Air Jordans stolen from outside his home in Queens' Richmond Hill neighborhood. An unknown porch pirate who was traveling in a Honda CR-V was apparently following the delivery driver and took the package almost immediately after it was delivered. Now, Carlos was no stranger to porch pirates before this. In total, he estimates he's had more than 100 packages taken this way, many of them containing expensive shoes that were supposed to be part of his sneaker collection. However, something about this incident in particular broke him. He saw the thief over his doorbell camera in the act, and though he pleaded with him over his intercom to not take the package, the thief ignored him. All Carlos could do was watch helplessly over his phone since he was at work at the time. That was when he decided enough was enough. A few days later, the 35-year-old came up with an idea. He created a decoy package, put it on his doorstep, and waited for the thief to return. Inside the parcel was a disgusting surprise: some dog poop and a soiled pee pad courtesy of his English bulldog Hazel, as well as a note that read in part, quote, "F*** you." It turned out Carlos didn't have to wait very long, as a man quickly showed up and stuffed the stomach-churning package into his backpack. To Carlos's surprise, though, it was a different thief than the man in the Honda who had recently been victimizing him. Apparently deciding he would save the poop package for another day, Carlos ran outside with a bat and confronted the thief in the act. The terrified man, later identified as 36-year-old Victor Stazone, tried to offer a lame excuse, but Carlos wasn't buying it. He forced the 36-year-old to remain at the scene until police could arrive. While Stazone has now been charged with petty larceny, criminal possession of stolen property, and criminal trespass charges, it appears that Carlos is still waiting for his opportunity to get the unknown thief in the Honda. He may get his chance sooner rather than later, as Carlos claims he's been driving around the neighborhood recently.
A 37-year-old Indiana man has reportedly managed to avoid jail time this week after he pleaded guilty in connection with a bizarre incident last summer in which he led police on a high-speed chase while working as a Google Street View driver. The whole thing started at around 5 p.m. on July 31st, 2023, when an officer with Henry County's Middletown Police Department spotted a rather unique vehicle driving recklessly near a local high school. The car was equipped with several 360-degree cameras that were mounted on an antenna. had California license plates and was wrapped in a vinyl skin. The skin revealed why the car looked so strange. This was a vehicle that was supposed to be mapping for Google Street View. The officer attempted to conduct a traffic stop. However, the driver, later identified as 37-year-old Coleman Ferguson, refused to pull over. Instead, he sped up, eventually reaching speeds of 120 miles per hour. The Middletown officer alerted police in neighboring Madison County, who quickly joined in on the pursuit. It eventually came to an end when Coleman lost control of the Street View car, barreling through a guardrail and briefly going airborne before landing in a creek. He was arrested immediately after. During court proceedings at the end of last month, Coleman admitted that he had no reason to try and flee from police, other than the fact that he said he was scared. He pleaded guilty to a felony charge of fleeing from law enforcement, and as part of a plea deal is due to be given a 1-year suspended jail sentence. He has also agreed to pay a little over $3,200 in restitution. Despite Coleman's guilty plea, authorities say that they are confused as to how he ever became a Google contractor in the first place. The 37-year-old reportedly has a rap sheet that includes multiple driving-related offenses, and according to people in the area, had been seen driving recklessly in the Google vehicle many times before last summer's incident.
A 13-year-old Pennsylvania girl is reportedly being charged as an adult this week after she allegedly murdered her mother and stabbed her younger brother during the middle of a heated argument. The whole thing began at around 12:30 p.m. on March 29th when police in the city of Wilkes-Barre were called to a residence on South Sherman Street with reports of a violent incident. After arriving and heading inside, officers found 44-year-old Tamika Tucker, who was suffering from multiple stab wounds to her neck and torso. Life-saving measures were attempted, but sadly, she was pronounced dead at the scene. Another victim, Tamika's 11-year-old son, was also found suffering from stab wounds to his back on a couch, though his injuries were non-life-threatening and he was taken to a local hospital. The only other person home at the time was Tamika's 13-year-old daughter, Latea Powell. According to police, she quickly confessed to being the one responsible for what had happened. Powell said she stabbed Tamika and her brother before disposing of the knife she used on a neighbor's property. That knife was later recovered. Back at the crime scene, police discovered the kitchen drawers and cabinets were locked with padlocks, with one of these appearing to have been broken and on the floor. No information about why the drawers and cabinets were locked has been released at this time, though. As Powell was arrested and taken from the home, she reportedly continued to confess, saying that she felt remorse about what she had done. Among these statements were, quote, "I killed my mom and she'll never forgive me if she is alive," and "I don't know how people can do stuff like this and not feel bad about it." She also said that she felt, quote, "regret, guilt, and self-disgust about what she had done." The 13-year-old has since been charged as an adult and is now facing charges including murder, 2 counts of aggravated assault, and tampering with evidence.
Representatives from the Oklahoma Bureau of Criminal Investigation released an alarming update in the case of a pair of missing Kansas women this week, announcing several days into their investigation that they now believe their disappearances were the result of foul play. The whole situation began sometime on March 30th, when 27-year-old Veronica Butler and 39-year-old Jillian Kelly vanished while traveling through a rural part of Oklahoma's Texas County. The women, who are both members of the Hugoton First Christian Church just over the state border in Kansas, were driving to pick up Veronica's 8-year-old son and 6-year-old daughter. The kids reportedly live with Veronica's ex-mother-in-law in the community of Eva. It was only supposed to be a short drive to pick up the children. However, Veronica and Jillian never arrived. Things got a whole lot more alarming when the vehicle the women were last seen traveling in was found abandoned near Highway 95 and Road L. The area is close to a high school that Veronica reportedly graduated from back in 2015 and was just 3 miles north of their intended destination. While the women's disappearances were declared suspicious at the time that they were initially reported to the public, authorities have since upgraded their concerns. They now allege that they have recovered evidence that points to foul play being involved in the case. At the time of this recording, few other details are available about the situation. However, some local media outlets have noted that there is speculation from some of those close to the women that the contentious custody situation between Veronica and her ex-husband might be connected to the case. According to these reports, the 27-year-old's former husband is a recovering drug addict who was recently released from prison on a felony firearm possession charge. There were also allegedly tensions between Veronica and her ex-mother-in-law after she was given temporary custody of Veronica's children by their father, who claimed that Veronica was an unfit mother. Jillian, meanwhile, is the wife of the pastor at the church that they both attended. She has 4 children of her own, and she and her family were supposed to move to Nebraska in the next few months, where her husband was supposed to become the new pastor of another church. Currently, police say that they are still looking for both women and are asking for any members of the public who might have information to please come forward. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you'd consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.